Welcome to the High Quality Fun podcast where tough times make good stories. In today's episode, we talk to Stephanie, who has raised her 3, soon-to-be 4, kids in nature through different hikes and travels. We quickly bond over our desire to get our kids outside and put our families in challenging situations early in their lives because we don't want to wait until the kids are much older. This mentality leads to a ton of struggles and stresses, but has taught her kids how to explore and problem solve while also making her a better mother. Through documenting these adventures, Stephanie has met a lot of like-minded people around the world and has even started leading mom and family backpacking trips to share these adventures with others who are curious about traveling as a family. We end the episode with a lesson about the importance of staying calm and remaining rational when things go south, and she tells a story about getting rescued by helicopter in Hawaii with the whole family. As someone who aspires to raise my kids in nature and take them on adventures, it was great hearing from someone who has been doing it for a lot longer than me. Tune in and take note on this episode of the High Quality Fun podcast.
Yeah, so I'm Stephanie. My Instagram handle is the Backpacking Mom. That's a large part of what I do with my family is backpack in all sorts of locations, internationally as well as in the US. I have 3 kids, like you said, one on the way. My oldest is 16. I have a 12-year-old daughter, and then I have a 3-year-old son and a little girl on the way due in July. So we like to do all sorts of activities, backpacking, snowboarding, skiing, snowshoeing, you name it. If it's off the beaten path and a little bit wild and high quality fun, or what I refer to as type 2 fun, we're probably into it.
That's fantastic. How did you get into hiking and all these sports? Did it start when you had the kids, or was this just something you did beforehand?
Yeah, I think I started it a little bit backwards. I got married very young. My first marriage, my older 2 kids are from a prior marriage. And he was actually in the Navy, stationed in Washington State, which is a very beautiful state. I grew up on the East Coast in Massachusetts, in this city. And so I moved out there. I had my oldest when I was just 18. So it's kind of me and this baby. And my then husband would deploy frequently. And I'm in this beautiful spot. And I'm just like, wow, we have got to get out there. I see these mountains. Like, how do we get into them? And it just started and sparked this huge love affair with outdoor things, mountains, and doing hard things with your kids. Because if I wanted to do it, I had to take my son and then later on my daughter. It wasn't going to happen without him. So I wanted to do it. And so off we went. That's kind of how it started. And yeah, I got into it as an adult, a young adult, but I did not do any of this growing up. My family is not particularly outdoorsy. I'm kind of the wild card of the bunch.
I love that, and I like what you said there about doing hard things with your family, because we always tell ourselves, at least, that what's the alternative? It's either you do it, you figure it out, or you don't. Like, I don't know. We got invited to a wedding out in Alaska, and we have 2 girls under 3, and at the time they were, yeah. I think we still had to buy 1 seat for one of the kids, but the other one we got a free seat for, and it was brutal. It was like, man, I want to go see Alaska, but this is going to be really hard. And you either make it happen, figure it out, or you just don't go. Prolong things and do it much farther down the road. So we try to pride ourselves on that, and I can clearly tell that you do the same thing. So yeah. So you started hiking with the 1 kid, and I assume it just kept going from there.
Yeah, we did our first backpacking trip on the coast of Washington, and I realized how amazing it was to be out there with just you, what you carried on your back. And my son was then 3, and it was just this really magical experience. And that summer, I was like, wow, this is cool. I know there's other cool things out there. And we just kind of took off with it and explored a lot. And then it was that summer that I found out I was pregnant with my daughter. And same thing, next year we went back to that same beach. It was her first backpacking trip as well. So the Washington coast has a special spot in our hearts. And I think we're actually going to go back this summer too. We try to make it back frequently because it's just such a magical place and where it all began. But yeah, I started with the one and we just kind of added in and haven't really slowed down. If anything, we've ramped up. My husband likes to say that it's always bigger and better. And I think there is that a little piece in people that enjoy these types of endeavors is that, okay, we did this, we can probably do this next. And you get better at it and there's a bigger, better sounding adventure and you have to go pursue it. And we have scaled up quite a bit. He's not wrong.
How long are you actually doing these trips for? Are they overnight camping trip? Is it like, you know, hiking out and then coming back to camp to the car, or are you doing multi-day excursions when you're bringing the kids out?
Yeah, they're multi-day. We pack food and all the gear we need. It's different every time. Like I just completed a backpacking trip with my toddler and it was just a one nighter. We went out for the one night, found a hot springs to backpack and camp by, and then hiked back out. But we've also done 5 days. We did 5 days in Chile last year and we were out for all 5 days. And we've done, 5 days in Idaho along the Frank Church or in the Frank Church Wilderness along the Salmon River, which was amazing. So we do both quick overnights. We do car camping as well. But I like to get like out and hike into the middle of nowhere. That's my specific brand of fun. So yeah, definitely a lot of multi-day. That's where the money is for me, at least.
I love it. Yeah, we had a big tent that we toted around in our truck when it was just us, and then now that we have kids, that tent's not big enough, so we bought a pop-up, and we do a lot of truck camping. So we'll drive all the way across the US, you name it, with the kids, and camp wherever we can. We've been out to Colorado, and that was a lot of fun, but it's also challenging getting two kids to sleep in the same room and like not feed off each other and keep each other up. We were camping in Colorado one time, and I swear the neighboring campsites probably thought we were murdering our kids because they were just screaming bloody murder, and we could not get them to calm down. Yeah, I forgot where I was going to go with that. So what type of gear are you camping when you're doing this? Because I think your two are kind of old enough now where they can carry a lot of their stuff on their back. But doing a 5-day hike where you're actually traveling to get there, like that's a lot of planning for a young family.
Yeah, it definitely has progressed. As we started them very young, so this is not something new to them. I don't think they remember a time where we ever weren't traveling or camping somewhere. We also we have a rooftop tent. So we do some of the same
Okay.
things, kind of like drive and camp wherever, and we'll hike. But yeah, when we're backpacking, we have lightweight tents. The older two can carry a lot of gear. I mean, my teen can carry more than I can at this point. So I usually load him up pretty good with gear, food. Up until this year, I was carrying my toddler, from the time he was a baby till about 2, and I'd strap gear onto my kid carrier, everything he needs, diapers, wipes, all my clothes. Our packs are heavy. There's no ultra lighting when you have kids and backpack. It's just heavy. And like you said, I think in the moment, we've had a lot of sleepless nights in tents, be it in the rooftop tent or on the trail. People around us have probably like wished death upon us because our kids or baby was so loud. And I think I rolled over to my husband in the middle of the night, been like, I'm never doing this again. This is it. We're never doing this again. We need to pack up and hike out. Like, I'm over it. And I have not made good on that promise yet. I come back and I plan the next trip. So just want to acknowledge that there's not really a lot that's easy about it. Nothing is easy when you're taking young kids and either driving across the country and camping. They're not in their own rooms, they're not in their own surroundings, or you've removed them from everything comfortable in their life and they're sleeping on the ground in the middle of nowhere. And so are you. So it is hard. It's so hard. And in those moments, I have been like, I'm done. This isn't worth it. But it actually is worth it. The good for us always outweighs those hard moments. And I also have a good friend on Instagram, Nia. Her handle is Born a Backpacker. And she likes to say a lot, like, it will end. That long flight that your baby is crying on and screaming, that comes to an end. That sleepless night, it's over at some point. Like, these moments end. And I try to, like, that's my mantra sometimes. Like, this isn't forever.
You mentioned the flight, and we had our kid flying back from Alaska. One of our kids would not fall asleep, and I felt bad because we were that family on the plane. But then I looked around and I was like, everyone on here has noise canceling headphones. I don't feel so bad anymore. I feel like 10 years ago was a lot different and whatever, but maybe I'm just tougher and don't care about what other people think anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean, people are entitled to a kid-free life, but they're not entitled to a kid-free world. Like, you're gonna encounter kids, and what are you supposed to do? Ship your kid to Alaska to not inconvenience others? Like, no, they can be on the flight, they're gonna cry. When I was younger, I probably cared more, but now I'm just like, yep, like, I'm trying. If you think you can do any better, by all means, step in and give a sister a hand. But no parent is not trying to quiet their kid on a plane. We've all been there, for sure.
And I know that, I mean, I'm laughing now, right? That moment sucked. Those are moments where you come back, you look at your spouse, like, man, this was more work than it was fun, and maybe we should have just stayed home. But once you come home and calm down, I feel like these are the tales that you're telling your friends. Like, let me tell you how much this sucked and like what happened, and then you can all laugh along about it. And those crappy memories are actually some of the ones that last the longest, the ones you retell over and over. So there's like a bittersweetness to some of the crudiness of everything.
Oh, 100%. I mean, even to take even further, it's almost like trauma bonding, right? Like, you all go through this really, like, terrible experience. I mean, I've definitely I remember we were flying home from Peru with my toddler who, as a baby, he was a screamer. So out of nowhere, he would just let out these blood curdling screams. And you would have thought that we were murdering him. It was jarring. It was abrasive. It would take your breath away. People would, like, gasp, like, because it's so alarming. And, like, he would do that on the plane, and it would just be so awful. So we've been traveling for over 12 hours at this point. We're on our last leg flying into Boise, and there's just this guy in front of us that is so annoyed with us, like, heavy sighing, turning around, and I'm just holding my baby, and I'm just, like, crying because I'm so exhausted, so tired, so done, so angry that he's judging me. Like, you don't even know what we've been through. And these are the stories. Like I said, like, me and my husband just had to get through it. Our kids kind of laugh about it now. Those are the stories you go on to tell forever and ever. Like, oh my gosh, do you remember that time? And it you can't get those really good memories, those really amazing stories, without some hardship. Like, that's part of it. I also call it the price of admission. Like, if you're gonna do big adventures, if you're gonna have these big grand ideas, like, you got to pay a price, and usually it's in the form of misery of some sort.
I don't think I've ever heard that term trauma bonding. I really like that.
I realize it's pretty accurate.
No, that's good. When you're doing these hikes, I assume you're kind of scaling everything back quite a bit too, just to make it, more tolerable for the short legs and everything.
You would think that, wouldn't you? Uh, I would like to give a moment of credit to my husband, because a lot of times I'm like, we're gonna do this, and it's like 30 miles, and yeah, like, we'll hike here to here, and it'll be 10 miles, and he's like, listen, no one's gonna be happy if we do that. I'm like, all right, you're right. So he is the voice of reason in our relationship. I'm the visionary. He's the voice, yeah, the voice of reason that's like, okay, that's a great idea. Here's what we're actually gonna do. Because I am a big dreamer about what we're gonna do. But no, we have pulled off big trips with little humans. Now we are sort of having to scale. It pains me, just because of the stage of my toddler, 3 years old. He is too heavy to carry, and also pretty little to walk long distances. So it'll be like a few years of building up. But up until this point, we really haven't slowed down. We did the Salcantay trek in Peru that was 50 miles when he was 1 and my daughter was 9, and she walked it all herself. We went up over 15,000 feet. I was so proud of her. She was such a trooper. It was on a group trip with all adults. They were the only kids, and she just killed it. It was such a good moment. So, and the W trek last year in Patagonia, we did. And again, I carried my little guy, and our whole family went. And yeah, I'm not into like basic adventures. I really do want to go big. I want to go hard, and the kids come along. So this will be a difficult season of training up my toddler's little legs to get with the program. And, we're going to have to do that work, and we'll do it. And hopefully, yeah, we'll be back to regularly scheduled crazy adventures in no time.
You kind of strike me as a person where if you go on vacation, you're not really sitting around the hotel at all. You're going way too hard. And when you get back, you are more exhausted than when you left.
Yes,
There you go.
another point of contention for my husband who actually enjoys an actual vacation. So I've had to schedule in, I think we're at a 2-to-1 ratio. He doesn't call the trips that we take vacations, he calls them adventures. So we have to have a 2-to-1 adventure to vacation ratio because he's like, I need a vacation from the vacation we just went on. He actually enjoys staying on a beach, and one of the biggest fights we've been on vacation is we were on an actual vacation. We're at a resort. We're at a beach in Mexico. I can see a high point in the distance. I'm like, how do we get to the top of that? And I'm like talking to the front desk, and they're like, oh yeah, like you can hike it in the morning, and there's a gate. So I'm like making these plans, and my husband's like, this is a joke. I'm being punked, right? Like, you are really gonna go on a hike? And I was like, no, I don't like have plans to like do that tomorrow already. So we actually got in a bit of a fight on that one. And needless to say, we did not hike on that trip, but that is absolutely who I am. Very hard for me to sit still. Got to see the things. I want to see the things and experience it all. So I'm learning. My husband is teaching me relaxation ways.
That's kind of us right now. We always get back more exhausted than we left, and we have to tone it down. We have to like force ourselves to be like, all right, let's chill. Let's book a reasonable flight, so we can get some sleep. We don't need the red eye, maybe, that kind of stuff. But it's always fun when you can just cram as much as you can into a place that you might not ever get to see again.
Yeah, it is that mindset. I have a severe case of FOMO, fear of missing out. And, who knows when we're going to be back here, if we're going to make it back here. And I feel that way. Yeah, you just want to see it all. And I do think it is a special breed or brand of person that feels that way because I have been informed that not everyone feels that way. And there are people out there that actually can relax when they're on vacation. So I think we are a subsect of the population.
Awesome. So when I was going through your page, I noticed that you were doing a lot of hikes or travels with what looked like other moms, other families. Is that accurate? So you've kind of built a community around this?
Yeah, it's kind of twofold. I started women's trips kind of by accident. As I built up my Instagram, you kind of meet other people on Instagram. They're doing similar things and you form relationships. And this guy was like, hey, we should get together. We should all get together and do it. I'm like, yeah, we should do that. And so I booked a backcountry yurt, which is usually, they're really popular in the winter here in Idaho and kind of in the West. And you snowshoe or ski in and you stay in the yurt and it's really nice. They have wood fire, so you're not cold and you can bring in all the food. And we did that, but I quickly learned that it's actually illegal to do that and charge money for it, because then it kind of turned into like, wow, moms really like this. Moms need to get away from their kids and they want to do adventures. I can do that. And so I started charging just for like time and the resources, but you actually need to be an outfitter and guide to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh, oopsies. So I did go through a very long process of becoming an outfitter and guide here in Idaho. So I do outfit in 2 specific areas of Idaho. One is the Hells Canyon area, and we can do backpacking trips there. And then I am also licensed in another area. outside of Idaho City, and we do winter yurt trips there. And it was out of necessity because I obviously don't want to be operating illegally. And so, yeah, I did all that. And I do trips with mainly other moms. And then I have formed some really close friends here that have small kids. And I think once you figure that ticket out of kids often do better with other kids, and sometimes they'll hike longer, or they'll see what other kids are doing and they'll jump on board with it. It's a huge tool. So I do really enjoy traveling and backpacking and hiking with other families to get our kids like excited about it and, make them go further. And it's just a really cool experience. So yeah, I definitely do like the business side of the women's trips, and then like friend side with fellow adventure families as well.
Cool. This is not going to be the best segue, but I've found that when I talk to different people on this show, there's like always a community element, right? You're a snowboarder, you're a hiker, you're a snowmobiler, whatever it is that you do. Like it's very interesting to talk about the community that particular guest has formed around the hobby or the adventure. Can you maybe tell us about your community, either the moms that you've traveled with for work, or even like your Instagram community, and how they've been so supportive, or maybe not, with this type of lifestyle?
Yeah. So I mean, the internet is an interesting place. And so when you're putting out some of the stuff that we're putting out and what we're doing with kids and some of the things that have happened to us on the trail, you're going to get a lot of criticism, and you're going to get a lot of people that don't understand your lifestyle. I've been accused of child abuse, neglect. I've been accused of a lot of things online for videos that go viral. So that's one end, right? So when you find somebody that sees what you're doing, and I call it the same brand of crazy, they're that same brand, and they're as jazzed about it, it's so refreshing. And you're just like, oh, I have found my people. And it makes you for me, it made me feel a lot less alone, because I started this as a really young mom and nobody that I knew was really doing it. And once I started putting this out online, you find people, you're like naturally attracted to each other, everyone that's doing similar things. And you're like, wow, there are other parents out there that are, for lack of a better word, just as crazy, just as ambitious, just as jazzed and excited about doing these things. And you just kind of bond, you latch on. There's me and another mom in Utah that pulled off some pretty crazy things with our kids last summer. And it was just so cool because she's on the same page I am. We don't even really need to talk about it. When we're suffering, it just kind of gets quiet and we just push through and we just suffer together. And then when it's good, we're just like so excited and happy about the trip that we pulled off and the crazy memories and the beautiful pictures and just what we were able to provide for our kids. And it's just a really good feeling to find people that understand you. Like, you want to be understood, you want to be heard and seen, and you want to provide understanding, and you want to see other people and what they're doing and validate that for them. So it's been a very rewarding part of the journey. And I think, like you said, no matter what the hobby is, backcountry snowboarding, skiing, horseback riding, whatever it is, to find people that are as passionate about it as you is just, it's huge. It's amazing.
I assume this person out in Utah, it sounds like you met them in person. Did you meet them through your social circle online?
Yeah. Most of my really close adventure friends have been met online, because I don't know about you, but when you think about people that you interact with either at work or like my neighbors, even my family, everyone looks at a lot of what we do and are just like, no, thank you. We would not like to do that. And yeah, I really don't know anyone that I've adventured really hard with that hasn't been formed through this connection via online. So
That's remarkable, because like it seems like when you fall into a hobby, or you find a hobby and find like-minded people, it's just like, first, you're going to want to do the same thing, but secondly, like more times than not, you're going to agree with a lot of the same things. And if you don't, you can at least talk through them. It's not going to be like an abrasive conversation. So, anytime you find someone doing the same hobby, it's very easy to get along with them in any conversation. And that's honestly something that you don't really find in normal society. So I could imagine those bonds are pretty close from complete strangers, you know. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah, no, and I consider them my closest friends, even though we don't live, we live in neighboring states and we don't get to see each other every day. We talk like at least every week. We're exchanging travel plans, trail plans, arranging our next time that we're going to get together. It has, yeah. It's been one of my like just closest friendships, just for all the reasons you said. You see eye to eye on a lot of things, and you can just form deep relationships pretty quickly.
so now, since we're talking about normal people, we'll call them normal people. How is like, what have you noticed with your kids versus other kids? Other kids at school or whatever that maybe the families don't go out of their way to do these quote unquote crazy things.
So I do want to just pause and just say that the lifestyle that we get to live, I do actually feel very lucky and, for lack of a better word, just privileged to be able to afford the gear that we can afford and the flights that we can afford and the trips. Like, this isn't, I don't want to just gloss over that anybody can just start today and do it. This has been a slow build. I mean, when I was a single mom, like, I didn't have the nicest lightweight gear and I still went. So absolutely you can still do it. But the scale at which we do it has been a slow build, and I do feel very lucky to be able to do this. And I would never say that raising your kids this way is the only way to form well-adjusted kids. I don't want to come across that way, but I will say that our kids are resilient. They can see a problem and problem solve through it. There isn't, I mean, they're kids, right? So there is a meltdown factor for every kid. But especially my two oldest, who are now 12 and 16, I can watch them assess the situation, think through some things, make decisions better. I do find that my relationship with them, when we remove ourselves from service, screens, distractions, emails, that's when like real connection happens. So we've had really long talks, really long, deep moments together, really hard moments. We've made it through some really hard things. My son and I climbed a technical mountain in Washington last year, Mount Baker. It was really hard. We were really tired. We were awake for so long because you start so early, and it was grueling. And it just brought us closer together. So I would say I notice that, yeah, they can really problem solve. Our relationship is good. There's a certain level of trust there, and they aren't able to chill. And my me and my husband go back and forth on whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing. But neither one of them can sit in front of a screen all day and be satisfied. Like, they both like their phones or video games. My son will wander out and she's like, what are we doing today? He cannot just like sit there forever. There are other interests. And I really am grateful for that. Just that that's not the only thing they need to be satisfied. There's like a craving for more adventure, for that outdoor piece of it. And he's pursued a lot of his own outdoor adventures now. They look different. Like, he has a Jeep, so he likes to off-road and camp with that, but that's a win. If he's 16 and wanting to go outside and camp, a win's a win. So that'll be the things I notice at this point.
It's still pretty early for us, so it's hard to compare if it's the right or wrong thing to do with other couples, but it's something that's always on my mind. And yeah, I'm glad you brought it back and said this is like, you're privileged to be able to do this. I think that's great and it makes a lot of sense, but I also think there's a lot of people that can talk themselves out of a lot. I mean, there's trails around, there's trails within 10-20 minutes of anybody, and like, if you really want to get outside, you can do it with just your diaper bag and a pair of tennis shoes. And I mean, I'd encourage people to do that just because it's getting out in nature, doing something different, doing something that might be a little more challenging than sitting at home and playing games or whatever. Uh, yeah, so I'm glad you kind of made that a point to bring up. Uh,
Totally. But I mean, the benefits, the evidence that we have, like the scientific evidence tell us that a walk in your local park has the same benefits as, me traipsing 50 miles into the woods. Like outdoor time, green space time, it doesn't matter. The benefits are the same. And absolutely, like there are trails everywhere. You go, I mean, that's one of my number one advice. How do you get started? I'm like, just go. Just get out there. Start with the trail that's 10 minutes down the road, and maybe you'll work up to one that's 20 minutes, and then maybe you'll get it like daring and try camping, and then maybe you'll try backpacking. Like it's a progression, but you just got to go. You got to do it. So.
And then like also, how do you even know if you like it, right? If you just, go do a local trail, you might find out, nope, this isn't for me. And then whatever. Otherwise you're just gonna be stuck in your head thinking, what if?
Right.
Yeah,
Or like
great
you
advice.
said, talk yourself out of it. Like, oh, I could never do that. And it's like, no, maybe not right at this moment. You couldn't do like some of the really big adventures, but you sure can take your kiddo and go for a walk and just see, what happens. And if your kiddo loves it and if you love it, and the exploration and noticing wildlife and plants and all that happens there, like you can do that. You can talk yourself out of a lot, but you sure can do a lot too. I like that perspective.
Yeah. So I know that you have some crazy stories about some of your travels. I always like to spend a little bit of time in the podcast to give you a chance to just tell us some of the best worst stories that you've had, hiking, snowboarding, whatever comes to mind that you want to bring up.
Well, April is always kind of a fun month because it marks the anniversary of one of our biggest adventure/adventure fails. Let's see, it was April 2018, so it's been quite some time. My kids were 10 and 6 at the time, but we did the Nepali Coast Trail in Hawaii. It's on the island of Kauai. I don't know if you know about it. It's pretty hyped up. I think Nat Geo did something about like it was on a list of like the 10 most dangerous hikes, and it is, there's a lot of hype around it, and it is dangerous in the fact that if you try to cross the rivers on this trail while they are flash flooded, and they do become flash flooded, people have died. There is a cliff section on this trail that a few people have fallen off of. I mean, this isn't like a yearly event that happens, but yes, people have died on this trail. It's along the beach. There are some really crazy currents. If you swim in the water, people have drowned. So naturally, I was drawn to this trail. And I was like, no, I think we can do this. It's an 11-mile hike in, and there's a halfway point, and I really wanted to pull it off. And then I knew my kids' skill level. So we did. We planned. We set off. We, of course, did our due diligence and checked the weather reports and did everything. We're going to be out for 4 nights. So everything looked good. We had a great hike in, smooth as can be. Enjoyed our time in this beautiful valley. Like there's no one there. It's this beautiful Hawaiian beach. And it's actually where they filmed some of Jurassic Park. You've got those big green cliffs that look almost otherworldly. It's beautiful. And so we're like, okay, success. We go to bed that night. We're going to pack up to leave the next morning. And the sky opened up, and I believe that island got 46 inches of rain in a 24-hour period. So, it was torrential. I remember waking up, and my son was like, there's a helicopter, because it was so loud. It was raining so loud. And I was like pushing down on the floor of the tent, like, what is that bubbling up? It was water. There's like a river underneath our tent. It was wild. So we didn't know what to do. So we packed everything up that morning. It's all wet. So it's like a million pounds. Everything's soggy. And it's about a half mile to the first river crossing. And we get there. I'm like, yeah, okay. This river was raging. I mean, it was like the trail was basically a river itself. It had not let up raining. And we're like, okay. It was a very easy decision to make. We're just like, well, we're not crossing this river with our small children. But that being said, this is our last night there. We really didn't have a ton of food. There's no service, and we didn't know how long this storm was going to last or how long these conditions were going to last. And so we weren't actually married then. It was I don't even think we were engaged. I don't know why my husband agreed to marry me. But my then boyfriend looks at me and I'm just like, okay, like, hey kids, you want some candy? And we like rigged this little tarp and we give them some candy and they like perk right up and they like take your lead on what you're feeling. And I was like, Brendan and I are just gonna go talk over here for a minute. And so we just tried to stay really calm and make good decisions. And the obvious decision was to stay close to our resources. There was many other hikers that were also going to be stranded. And yeah, we didn't cross the river. We went back. We tried to find some high ground. We made camp. We pooled all our resources with the other hikers. No one went hungry. We were able to come up with enough food. And eventually the rain stopped, but the trail was gone. The trail was washed completely away. In fact, even if we had tried to get back to the trailhead, our rental car was out to sea.
My
The
God.
bridge, yeah, the bridge to the trailhead was washed away and gone. So no matter what, we were going to have to be rescued either from the trailhead or from the beach where we were at. So the rain stops, the Coast Guard comes along and drops a radio and it's like, hey, we know you're out there. Like, are you guys okay? We are actually dealing with this huge evacuation that's happening in the town. We know that you're here. We're going to come get you. Do you guys need anything in the meantime? And like, we're like, I mean, I guess we're like stranded on this beautiful beach. The sun's out now. Like, I think we're good. And we just kind of, I think it was 2 extra nights that we ended up staying there. And they eventually came and got us and airlifted us out. But that was quite the experience. And I always joked after that, I'm like, my kids aren't going to trust me anymore on my like decisions. And my daughter was 6. And I remember there was tour helicopters before this storm hit that would come because it's a beautiful area. So you can get a helicopter and like, just do a helicopter tour. So you could see them and hear them. She's like, why don't I just take a helicopter out? And I was like, that's not how this works. And then like, she's like, well, joke's on you. We're taking a helicopter out.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, that's definitely one of our bigger stories from the trail. And I think it was really good for the kids to kind of see us just make decisions. When you hear about things going wrong in the backcountry, it's usually a succession of bad choices. It's rarely just like one isolated decision. It's always a series of bad decisions. So if you can try to just do the next right thing and like the next safest choice, it usually serves you well. So I'm really glad that they got to see that, and just that we stayed really calm and collected, and we didn't freak out. We just did what we knew we had to do. So yeah, that's one of our battle stories.
Wow, that is wild. So you ended up grouping up with the other hikers, and what, a helicopter came by, you're like, oh, we're saved, and they just literally dropped a hand radio just to keep in touch with you guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very popular trail. You have to get permits for it. I want to say it's a state-run park. I'm not sure if it's not national. So they know people are out there.
Right.
They knew we were there. So yeah, they just kind of flew, and we could see like there was like Red Cross helicopter or airplanes flying over the beach. Like, wow, did someone die? Like, did something really bad happen? Because all we saw was the flooding on our beach. We didn't realize how bad it was on the rest of the island, and that the town, there were like houses out to sea.
Wow.
They closed the trail after this for 2 years to rebuild. They had to rebuild the town. Like, it was a huge thing that happened, and we didn't realize it because we were in the middle of nowhere. So it was kind of a wild thing.
And then didn't you say that you were supposed to leave the next day, but you ended up staying for 2 more nights?
Yeah, no. So we were supposed to hike out that day, and yeah, we were supposed to stay at our like nice resort. We booked like 3 nights at a nice resort after our backpacking trip, and we missed out on most of those nights. We had like one token night to live in luxury before we flew back home. But yeah, we were out extra nights on that one.
And then did you get your wrist slapped for the car, or was that just nothing we could do?
Sometimes I think the universe has your back because I never get insurance on car rentals. I'm super cheap. I'm like, my insurance will cover that. But I had researched this trail really well, and I had learned that those cars often get broken into, like windows smashed, because they know that you're out on the trail and that you're a tourist. So I was like, you know what? Let's just throw the insurance on full coverage insurance that you but purchase extra. And because I did that, they were just like, guess you're covered. Here's the keys to a new rental. And before
Wow.
that time and since that day, I've never gotten rental insurance on a rental car ever. But for whatever reason, I did that time and it really served me well because I don't know, I might be liable for that car that's out to sea somewhere.
You mentioned like uh, personal insurance. I think there's actually travel insurance. So for people that travel a lot, you can just get that travel insurance and that'll cover even car rentals wherever you go and stuff like that. So I don't know a lot about it. That's just been in the back of my mind because somebody mentioned it on the show.
Yeah. And a lot of travel credit cards come with some form of insurance. For high quality or type 2 fun lovers, I would definitely recommend getting, as I'm learning about how adventures often go sideways. Definitely a good idea.
Did anything with your packing strategy, travel strategy change after that trip? And I guess taking it a step further, like what has changed throughout the years to make this more comfortable or whatever?
Not really. I mean, because those types of things have kind of kept happening to us a little bit. It hasn't really deterred us. And when we flew down to Patagonia last spring, the airline actually lost all of our check bags. And I actually try really hard not to check bags for this reason. But when you're bringing a whole backpacking camp setup, like tents, trekking poles, you can't have your stoves, you can't even have like tent stakes like on the plate. You have to check luggage. So they lost everything. And we like the W Trek permits, you book out months in advance. Like if you miss your spot at these campsites, like that's it. It's done. The trip's over. You've missed it. So we get there and like our bags are not coming. We have like a 2-day window and they're not coming. They're not coming. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're gonna miss out on this bucket list trip. But thankfully, the town that we were in, they have a ton of gear rentals. So we just like went around and we have a family of 5. And so we're like running around trying to rent like enough tents. I think I even had to rent boots because I checked my boots because I'm dumb. And we had to buy clothes for some of the kids. The one good thing is that I did still have my kid carrier because that's kind of like our stroller through the airport. So it gets gate checked with us because that would not have been replaceable. But yeah, we managed to scrounge up the gear that was not ours. We had all of our food was gone. We had to like grocery shop and come up with backpacking meals on the fly. And somehow that's got to be one of the most stressful things. Not dangerous, just stressful. We pulled it off and we hit the trail on schedule. And man, it was wild. That was a stressful 24-hour in our bags. And if we were going to pull this off, we had to do it. And so we did. But no, I wish my packing strategy had changed to magic some of these woes away. But you gotta check bags sometimes, and it just happens. But I do actually really try hard to not check bags if I don't have to, because yeah, if it's with you, then it's just with you. I have a little bit of PTSD from that.
Did they just return the bags a few days later and you're like, oh, sorry?
So they did, and I tried to this is actually a little bit petty, but it ended up working. But they were going to be like, oh, we'll give you $50 for the inconvenience. I'm like, false, because we had to spend hundreds of dollars in renting this gear for the inconvenience. And I went back and forth with them. They weren't going to do it. And so I blasted this airline on my Instagram and like tagged them. And then they got serious about talking to me, and they did reimburse, not near what it truly cost, but more than $50. And it was a little bit closer. I really try not to do stuff like that, but it was wrong. Like they really messed up, and we didn't get our bags for 5 days later. And even per their policy, like their own policy, they should have reimbursed us more, and they were just fighting it every step of the way. So I took it upon myself to tell my entire Instagram following, and then they made it a little more right. So I don't know if that was the right thing to do, but it worked.
Well, bravo for you for making that happen. I mean, man, that's like desperation to make sure you get that trip done, but you did, and that's awesome.
Oh man, I'm lucky. My husband is actually a really good, um, like he's the foodie, so he could like visualize what needed to happen. Whereas I don't know what we probably just would have eaten like mac and cheese for all 5 days if it had been solely up to me. But he really pulled it together, and we make a good team. We really do make a good team. So I was very thankful that he could pull that together for us because it was, I mean, the memories from that trip were incredible. It's one of my favorite all-time favorites. If you're a backpacker, the W Trek in Patagonia is like the backpacking Olympics. Like everyone dreams of going there. So I was not about to just like lay down and let this one slip away. So
Let's take a quick break and hear from our sponsors. Here on the High Quality Fun podcast, we love showcasing people's stories through our interviews and posts. This gives our guests the opportunity to share their favorite memories, but sometimes audio alone is not enough. Most people are sitting on a collection of hundreds of photos and videos capturing their favorite moments without the time or experience needed to compile these memories into a video. This is why I have chosen to partner with Spivo. Simply send them your unsorted photos and videos, and in 7 days or less, they will create a professional video edit that allows you to relive your favorite memories again and again. To ensure every customer is satisfied with their video edit, Spivo provides unlimited revisions for 30 days and offers a 100% money-back satisfaction guarantee. As someone who has limited time to edit his family adventures, let alone this podcast, I am excited to work with Spivo to help everyone eternalize their favorite moments. Visit spivo.com/discount/high-quality-fun to learn more and let us know what you think about the product. We'd love to share it. Now, back to the show.
I have one more that really comes to, well, yeah, I have one more. We we were doing the Salcantay trek in Peru, which ends at Machu Picchu. It's not the Inca Trail. It does part of the Inca Trail, but it goes through like a gorgeous mountain pass, yada yada. It's very beautiful. So of course I had to do it. Couldn't just take the train to Machu Picchu and see it that way. Um, so we set out, everything's going great. We had acclimated in Cusco because it's high elevation. The pass is over 15,000 feet. And Cusco itself, I think, is at 9 or 10,000 feet. I'm getting my stats wrong. Anyway, you acclimate in Cusco. And we started our trail. Everything's great. First day, amazing. I'm pretty sensitive to water, so we always bring our own water filtration. We have a SteriPen. It works very well. We always do that. So I assumed that my husband had treated this water that was given to us. This is the first night. And I go ahead and drink it, and he looks at me, he's like, yeah, I didn't SteriPen that. I'm like, no. Sure enough, I get so sick from this water. I mean, yeah, I don't want to paint too good of a visual for you, but the bathroom trips were frequent and unfortunate. And our next day is the hardest day on the trail. It's a 14-mile day. We're gaining a ton of elevation. I'm carrying our littlest one, who is then I think 14 months old, and I'm scared to eat because it's not staying, it's evacuating quickly. And we were just like trudging up. It was actually a rainy day, so we didn't even have the view that I wanted. And my daughter had drank this water too, and she's 9, and she's having these problems too. And
Oh
I
no.
gotta say, like, this is the first time we've ever, like, we took the guide aside and we're like, what are our options? Like, is there, because there was horses that took like some of the gear because the camp chefs come with you and whatever. And they're like, no, sorry guys, like those horses are long gone. They're ahead of us. Like, you guys are kind of in it. Like, we were ready. We were like, well, I don't think we can do this. I truly did not think that we could do it. But then it was like, well, you got to. So it was literally a mental game of like one step at a time. I'd make like a goal. Like, I have a video of me moving at what appears to be a glacial pace. And we did it. We got up there. I was so thankful. You talk about community, of the group that we were with. They cheered for Danielle, my 9-year-old, and they like gave her like some sparkling water, and they took pictures with her. And it was all I could do to get myself and my baby up there. So I really couldn't celebrate her. And I was just so thankful that they had the ability to celebrate her and cheer for her. And, she had lunch up there and she still to this day describes it as the best bologna sandwich she's ever had. I'm like, really? And then, we made it down, we made it to camp, and our symptoms started to like get better, but we were so sick and I really didn't think we were gonna be able to do it. There wasn't even a good view to like rely to get you through. I'm like, it's cloudy, it's sucked in, we can't see it. And yeah, it was misery that I haven't really experienced outside of that moment, that I don't hope to experience again. But and again, one of those stories that you can tell and I can laugh about it now. And my poor daughter had to soldier through as well. And we have trauma bonded over that experience. And it's one of those things where, like, we did a really hard thing that in the moment were ready to give up. But it was like, sorry, you don't have a choice. So we did it, and we did it.
And you're still with your husband for not filtering the water and kicking the whole thing off.
Yeah, no, I didn't divorce him over that. So that's a thing.
Oh gosh, that sounds totally brutal. Man. Yeah, so
It
you
was
got some
wild.
stories. You've been some places with them and drugged them through hell.
Yes, literally.
I think the wild part of that is, like, it's not even, those stories aren't even ones that are just like kids throwing fits or slowing you down or anything. It's just literally the elements or bad luck coming at you, and you all have to brute force through it together. It doesn't even
That's the
seem like they're
thing.
slowing you down at that point because they're so good at this.
Well, that is the thing. Like, you learn together, and this is something we talked about a little bit beforehand. Just there has also been many full circle moments. I have some pictures of my now 16-year-old when he was 3 years old, and at that point, I was so young, I didn't realize or take into account really what was reasonable to expect a 3-year-old to do. So when he was 4, I took him on like a 7-mile backpacking trip, like up elevation, just because I'm like, 7 miles, we got this. Like, I didn't know. But I remember we were walking down into camp and he's just crying. He's just scream crying. And we're like a quarter mile away and he's just throwing this absolute tantrum. So it is kid stuff. And he is just beside himself. Everyone can hear us probably 5 miles away. This kid was, I mean, it was very normal. He's 3, he's done. Like, we had do not pass go. Like, he is over it, to, like, trail meltdowns where he's like throwing himself on the floor. We have a joke, we were like, we're going to take a break when we get to the meadow. And we kept saying that. And finally we're like at the meadow and he's like, there is no meadow. Like, you liars. So we have, all of these tantrums from him. But that being said, just last summer, he's hauling up this technical mountain. It's a glaciated peak, Mount Baker. We're roped up, we're on a rope team. And he's just like I'm the weakest link now because he is more fit, stronger, can carry more. And he just, like a total badass, just climbed this mountain. And he was then 15. And it's like, gosh, if I could have just shown me as I'm dragging this 3-year-old that is like just melting down on the trail. Like, look, this is your future. I don't know that I would have believed it. I would have been happy, but I don't think I would have believed it. So all of these larger scale moments that make good stories were built on the foundation of very normal kid meltdown, not enough snacks, not enough nap moments, for sure. I don't want to give anyone the wrong impression that we're just like this super family that just somehow it all worked out. No. We have had lots of kids throwing themselves on the ground moments. I have pictures too of them throwing themselves on the ground. So photo evidence.
Oh, that's good. I like that. I don't know where we want to go from here. I kind of want to just hear a little bit about your business, and then we can do any shout outs, and you can, shill anything you want before we sign off.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. I mean, I'm super lucky. Before I made the Backpacking Mom on Instagram my business that it is now, I am a nurse. I'm still a nurse. I worked as an RN in several different settings, but I was able to step away from that role about a year and a half, coming up on 2 years ago, So this past fiscal year was my first year, with the Backpacking Mom being my business. And it's been really interesting and neat. Like, even I didn't believe that people could just make money from doing cool things. I used to joke about that. Like, I wish someone would just pay me to be like a professional badass. How do we arrange that? And just through pursuing our passions and taking time to get some education on what it looks like to create content. I'm a self-taught photographer, and I do sell my images. Like, I partner with brands to sell photography of their products in amazing locations, and it's kind of been another really cool full circle moment that I could create a job out of my passion, and it allows me the free time to pursue these things with my kids. It's been really neat. And then the other accidental side of my business is my trips. I try to put on two. I try to put on 4 a year, 2 in like summer, spring, and 2 in the winter. This year I'm pregnant, so I'm not doing the summer ones or spring ones. But again, just out of accidentally realizing there's this huge need for women and families that want to get out there, but maybe are a little nervous or don't quite have the gear or skills. Again, because of my job, I'm able to provide gear for the women that don't have it. So it's not this huge financial investment. And I have some expertise under my belt now, so they feel comfortable adventuring with me. And it's just, again, been one of those cool things where it's like, wow, like, it's amazing to now provide those life-changing experiences for others, and kind of open their eyes to this big adventure world out there, and that women can do hard things, moms can do hard things with their kids, and you can adventure far and wide with your family. And I like, on my Instagram, I say that a lot, like, hey, if this doesn't sound like fun to you, it probably won't be fun. But if you're dreaming of big adventures, far off places, taking your kids on these types of trips and adventures, like, let this account be your permission slip. Like, it's okay to do so, and you can do it. And it's not always pretty, it's not always fun in the moment, but you absolutely can do it, and it will be worth it in the end. So yeah, that's kind of sums up the business side of things for me.
So these kind of like girls retreats, you sell, say, we'll take 10 people, we're all going to go and do this hike together over 10 days. Just show up, you know.
Well, it's never 10 days, because usually I try to make them pretty beginner friendly. I don't like to
Okay.
like crush spirits right out of the gate. I reserve that for my closest friends. So it's usually pretty beginner friendly, and I'm only licensed in very specific areas. So there are a couple areas, but yeah, I usually market via my email list. So you can find me on the Backpacking Mom on Instagram. There's a spot to subscribe to my email list, and I don't spam my email. I literally only email about trips when I'm planning a trip. So you can find the information there. But yeah, it's usually just like, this is where we're going, and this is when, like, come along. And I sell spots on the trip to compensate for the time it takes to plan and the gear and all of that. It's not a lucrative business, but it's definitely a passion project, and I'm happy to, again, just provide those experiences for others.
That's really cool. You're kind of the second person I've heard that's doing that. One of my other buddies lives in Taiwan, and he's doing the same thing with like motorcycle tours. So he's going to come over to the United States. You know, everybody shows up, rents bikes, and then they do this like Midwestern motorcycle tour. And
Oh,
man,
so cool.
that's really cool. I mean, you hear about these people that do like, I don't even know, under 30, fly down to Central America and we'll tour you around, and like now you're kind of doing that amongst your own community. I just think that's awesome.
Yeah, no,
Well,
it's been fun.
Stephanie, yeah, Stephanie, this was fun. I liked laughing along with some of your stories and hearing about how you adventure with all these kids.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me on your podcast. Again, it's always refreshing to connect with other people that enjoy the same type of fun that we do. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the High Quality Fun podcast. If you guys enjoyed this show, please give us a follow. And if you have a good story or just want to say hi, feel free to reach out to us on Instagram or YouTube. Thanks for listening.